Namaste and welcome. My name is Rebecca Priestley and I'm from Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand, and I'm convening this session. I would first like to welcome our presenters, John Shears, Nico Vincent and Jakob Belter to the SCAR 2022 Open Science Conference, and welcome all of you to this session on the discovery of the Endurance. Earlier this year, the Endurance 22 expedition made polar history with the discovery of the wreck of Shackleton's Endurance in the Weddell Sea. The discovery made international news, and photographs and video footage of the ship, found 3,000 meters deep in the Weddell Sea, captivated viewers around the world. But while I think we've all seen news articles or images shared online, this is only the second time that these three senior members of the expedition team have talked in public about the expedition. So today we're going to hear from expedition leader, Dr. John Shears, sea ice field scientist, Dr. Jakob Belter, and subsea project manager, Nico Vincent. So John and his team will give a presentation that will last about 45 minutes, and then we'll have a Q&A session. And we'll be ending after about 1 hour, after 9 o'clock. So you can ask questions at any time using the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. This session will be recorded and will be made available to conference participants. So that's all from me for now. I think we're starting with a short video. So John, over to you and your team.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Thank you for that introduction, and good morning and welcome to all the SCAR delegates. We're extremely pleased to be able to speak to you today. Science has been, and particularly Antarctic science, has been critical to our success in finding Shackleton's Endurance, and it's a privilege and honour for us to be speaking to SCAR today. I know that there are a lot of people out there who are really interested in what we've been able to do and some of the scientific opportunities that might result from our historic discovery. So it's a privilege to be able to speak to you all today. So as Rebecca mentioned, I'm John Shears. I was the expedition leader. I'm joined by Jakob Belter, who is our senior, one of our senior sea ice scientists, and Nico Vincent, who is the deputy expedition leader and our subsea project manager. As Rebecca said, we're going to talk for about 45 minutes. Order of play will be that we'll first show a short movie, which I think you'll all really enjoy. This is taken on the expedition earlier this year. Then I'll talk about the purposes, aims and objectives and challenges of the expedition. And Jakob will talk about the research that we did. It was absolutely critical to us that we did research at the same time as we were hunting for the wreck. And then finally, Nico will talk about our pioneering subsea operations and the discovery of the wreck, and show you a few glimpses of what might be possible with some of the data that we've collected. Then we'll finish with the questions and answers, and we're quite happy to take all questions and answers. I know there can be quite a few, but we'll take as many as we possibly can in the time that SCAR have kindly allotted us. And then finally, before we start, a few thank yous that I need to make. First of all, to the Falklands Maritime Heritage Trust. They were the people who funded and organised the expedition to enable us to get into the Weddell Sea. To Little Dot Studios, who provided the highlights film we're going to see in a minute. To my friends and colleagues at the Scott Polar Research Institute in Cambridge, they showed huge support for us, and we're using a number of their Hurley photographs today in our presentation. And then finally, a big thank you to SCAR. SCAR is a wonderful organisation. I've worked with it for many years, and the whole community has been behind us in our search. So we're very pleased to be able to do this presentation and give something back to the science community today. So Nico, if you could start with the first slide, please. Okay, so we'll talk for 45 minutes now on the historic discovery of Shackleton's Endurance. So we'll now show the highlights reel. So over to you, Nico.
We are at the Weddell Sea because we've been looking for the shipwreck of Sir Ernest Shackleton, the famous explorer. His ship, Endurance, was crushed in this ice. It sank in November 1915 and it has not been seen since, until now. We have just mounted a successful expedition to send an unmanned vehicle down 3,000 meters to the seabed, where we have identified the wreck of Endurance, and it is in astonishing condition.
I was stunned, absolutely stunned. The wreck is in incredible condition. There's virtually nothing living on it at all. You can still see the original paint on the vessel. It's as if it sank only yesterday.
As I speak, we have the submersible down there conducting a 3D LiDAR survey of the whole area, including the debris field. And with that, we'll be able to construct 3D models of the wreck, which are millimeter perfect, if you like.
Hello explorers! I'm so glad there's such a big group today because we have the ultimate guest, the captain of the SA Agulhas 2.
How you doing? Good.
Who are joining us from Harrington Middle School in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. Hey Seabots, how you doing today?
Good.
Great to see you.
Good.
Today, we've had a laser scanner down, we've had 4K cameras down, and we have confirmed that it is the wreck of Endurance. It matters because it will connect people around the world with this amazing story of heroism and survival. But even more than that, it will give people around the world a sense of wonder, exploration and adventure, and the things that we're going to do, unlocking the world with our technology.
Super. I hope you all enjoyed that movie. It still gives me goosebumps watching it, and there's much more of that to come. Our film director on the exhibition, who did a fantastic job, and I think you probably saw that in about a year to 18 months' time, it's going to be the subject of a major National Geographic TV documentary. So there's a lot more yet to come. So I'm going to talk now quick 10 minutes about the overall purpose, aims and objectives and challenges we face. So first slide, please, Nico. Okay, so this is what we're after. This is Shackleton's Endurance. This is a photo taken by Frank Hurley, Shackleton's photographer, in 1915, just as the ship is entering into the Weddell Sea. Probably one of the most famous ships in the world because of its association with Shackleton, in an incredibly difficult place to reach, deep in the Western Weddell Sea. Next slide, please. So what were the overall objectives of what we wanted to do? First of all, we wanted to locate, identify and survey the wreck of the Endurance. Secondly, we wanted to bring the story of Shackleton, but also science, technology to a new generation, to use what we were doing and the incredible story of Shackleton to enthuse young people absolutely around the world about the importance of science and technology and the Antarctic environment, and do that through a major international education and outreach campaign. We work with the Royal Geographical Society in the UK and with a US charity called Reach the World to get our outreach out. And then finally, but extremely importantly, we wanted to investigate and study the remote Western Weddell Sea. Very, very few ships have ever been to this location. I've been on the ship on Weddell Sea twice, and I think before that, Polar Stern, the German icebreaker, was the only vessel in recent history to have been there within the last 20 years. So it's an incredibly difficult place to get to, very remote, very little known about it. So we wanted to use the opportunity of the expedition to make sure that we were doing some really first-class science as well, and to use our platform to help scientists to do that. Next slide, please, Nico. Of course, I'm talking to an audience who know full well where the Weddell Sea is, but there might be a few of you out there who don't. You can see the map in front of you on the screen. You know, we were going to the Western Weddell Sea, to the east of the Antarctic Peninsula. It's an incredibly remote area. It's only possible to access it by ship during the short Antarctic summer season when the sea ice breaks out. But even in that far western, southern part of the Weddell Sea, you're still facing perennial thick sea ice. Next slide, please, Nico. For those of you who've never worked on sea ice, this is what it looks like. This is actually on the search area from earlier this year. Unfortunately for us, weather was not normally like this. It's normally overcast, cloudy. We had very few good days like this, but I think that gives you a good example of this incredible landscape of sea ice that we were working in. Next one, please, Nico. So the loss of endurance itself, I'm sure many of you are very familiar with the Shackleton story. What Shackleton wanted to do on the Imperial Transantarctic Expedition in 1914 was to be the first man to cross the Antarctic continent. And he was going to do that from the Weddell Sea, crossing via the South Pole over to Ross Island and the Ross Sea. But he never got to he never landed. The Endurance got stuck in the sea ice in the Weddell Sea, drifted for months, and she finally sank on the 21st of November, 1915. And for many shipwrecks, you don't really know the position of the wreck. But Shackleton had with him the most amazing captain, Captain Frank Worsley, who's a New Zealander. The image on the bottom right there is Worsley. That's taken from the Endurance expedition. Thank you, Nico, for showing that. And he was an absolutely brilliant navigator. Of his time, he was probably the world's best navigator on the planet. His positioning for the ship, then when the men were on the ice, drifting on the ice, and then, of course, most famously when they take one of the lifeboats that James Caird and they sail from Elephant Island to South Georgia. He navigates this tiny lifeboat over 800 miles of open ocean, an incredible feat of navigation. So we knew that Worsley's positioning would be very good. And of course, that is where we based our search. Before I go on to the next slide, I just want you all to, can you just go back? Sorry, Nico, can you just go back? I just want you all to think about what you're seeing there. That is the last image of the Endurance before it finally sank. That was taken by Frank Hurley on the 8th of November, 1915. The person on the left is Frank Wild, Shackleton's deputy in command. And you can see pretty much the absolute destruction that the ice had caused, and with the masts all down. But you can also see the funnel. So just bear that in mind for some of the imagery you're going to see in Nico's presentation a bit later on. Okay, next one, Nico. So we knew we would have probably quite a big area to search, but we knew pretty much where to go. The big problem for us was getting there through the ice. That part of the Weddell Sea, where we knew we'd be operating in sea ice, which would be 100% cover and probably up to 3 to 4 meters thick. However, this summer, for us, we were extremely fortunate. Sea ice conditions, it's the lowest on record, which you can see from the image from the from NOAA on the left-hand side. We were very fortunate. there was actually very little sea ice, particularly in the northern part of the Weddell Sea. But if you look on the image to the right, which is a satellite radar image from a German satellite called TerraSAR, you can see, and the green box shows you our search area, you can see that the vast majority of that box is just covered in ice. And you can see the black areas are open water leads. Jakob will talk a lot more than I about satellite remote sensing, but that was absolutely crucial for us to be able to get onto the wreck site and navigate safely through the sea ice. Okay, next one, please, Nico. And this is the ship we used. We used a South African research vessel called the SA Agulhas II. I had used her before in the Weddell Sea expedition in 2019. We knew she was an ideal platform as she has fantastic science laboratories, excellent aft deck for subsea operations, all the latest communications technology on board, which would enable us to do all the live streaming. She was an absolutely ideal platform for us. She's a PC5 icebreaker, so she can break 1 meter of ice at about 5 knots, 134 meters long, about 13,000 tons tonnage. Okay, next one, Nico. So we knew we had an excellent platform, but we weren't quite sure what the ice conditions were going to be like. We didn't know, as we were planning this expedition, that the ice would be as good for us as it was. So we had to think about numerous options to get us onto the wreck site, including the use of possibly putting out ice camps. So we took helicopters with us. So we had 2 helicopters on the expedition, so that if the Agulhas II couldn't get on to the wreck site, we'd use the helicopters to fly in an ice camp. Very technically, a very difficult thing to do, but we were prepared to do that if the ice conditions didn't allow us to get the ship on site. On this photo, this is taken on about 16th of February. I think it is the 16th of February. We're just coming on to the search box, and you can see that the sea ice conditions are actually extremely good for the ship. You know, she's cutting through the ice extremely easily, which was a big, you know, it was very fortunate for us, a bit of a surprise to see such good ice conditions. Okay, next one, Nico. We had a team of 65 world-leading engineers, technicians, scientists, pilots, filmmakers. It was a very mixed expedition team, which I led. And then we had the ship's crew, all South African, all highly experienced of working in Antarctica. One of the best ship's crews that I've ever been fortunate to work with on the Agulhas II. Okay, next one, Nico. Big difference to the previous expedition, the Weddell Sea expedition in 2019, is we used a completely different AUV. And Nico will talk much more about this than me, but just to say that this was a complete game changer for us working in sea ice. I'm sure it'll be very interesting for all of those marine scientists out there who are using AUVs and ROVs under ice in Antarctica. We used a vehicle produced by Saab in Sweden. It's called the Saab Sabertooth, and it was absolutely fantastic. And it's a hybrid, autonomous underwater vehicle, remotely operated vehicle, and it can be controlled via a fiber optic tether from the surface. Again, technically extremely difficult to do, but I'll let Nico talk all about that later on. Next one, Nico. You saw from the film that education outreach was extremely important for us. We were doing live streams from the vessel to communicate with classrooms around the world. This is an example, my favorite bunch of kids. This is it. They're in New York. They're from public school number 1 in Brooklyn. And I was very fortunate just a few days ago to go to New York and to actually meet them. They were super excited, and they'd actually done some expedition proposals for me to review, including one lad who's on the far right, as you look at it, who'd done a proposal to dive on Titanic, which Nico and I thought was a brilliant expedition idea. So we know that this expedition has enthused people all around the world, people who would never normally engage with Antarctica or Antarctic science or Antarctic technology. So we are very, very pleased with some of these outcomes, and who knows, you could be looking at the future generation of Antarctic scientists and engineers in the future just perhaps in that photograph alone. Okay, next one, Nico. So I talked about the challenges of sea ice, but even getting the expedition out from Cape Town, we were doing it just at the tail end of the COVID-19 pandemic. You can see us wearing face masks there. It was a big challenge to make sure that we got on, we had everybody on board, that we dealt with COVID properly, that we didn't have a big COVID outbreak whilst we were away. You know, in a very remote location, 10 days sailing from Cape Town and any major hospital. So we had to be very cautious about making sure that we dealt properly with COVID and any other medical emergencies that we might have. So we departed Cape Town on the 5th of February, and we got on to this search location on the 16th of February. And then that's when began sea ice and AUV operations. We got back to Cape Town, having found the Endurance via South Georgia on the 20th of March this year. Okay, next one, Nico. So Nico will talk a lot more than I about the AUV subsea operations and how he and his team led that search, which enabled us to discover the wreck on the 5th of March. Next one. But first of all, we'll get Jakob to speak about the sea ice science and the other science that we're doing on board. So I'll say thank you for now. I'll come back later, but now over to you, Jakob, to take us through the science. Over to you.
Thank you, John. Hello, everyone. As John already introduced brilliantly, I'm going to talk about the sea ice that we did during the Endurance 22 expedition, and I'm going to talk about that. The science team, it's easily recognizable on this image as the only team that doesn't have corporate design clothing. So we're a really international team. Next one, please, Nico. There's a 14 people team on the ship, but as you can imagine, there's a lot of people back home in the home office, in the back office that supported this expedition. I'm going to talk about the team that was on Agulhas. So we had people from the navigation support system company Drift Noise, the German Polar Research Institute, Alfred Wegener Institute, Aalto University in Finland, the South African Weather Service, the German Aerospace Center, and the Stellenbosch University. So these are the main groups that joined the expedition. And my idea is to give you a brief introduction into all these groups so that you can sort of figure out where there might be overlap or connecting points for you to contact our team and get cooperations going in the future with all the amazing amounts of data that we collected on the expedition. All right, I'm going to go start with the South African Weather Service. Next one, please, Nico. Yes, so what they did during the expedition, during transit, but also in the ice, was obviously collecting a lot of synoptic, meteorological, and oceanographic observations. They also supported us with daily weather briefings, analyzing the conditions that we would face on the ice, that kind of stuff. But they also deployed Argo floats, wave spotters along the way at each latitude line. So there's a lot of data that's going to be collected there. And they helped us analyze the conditions that we are facing, also in the climatological content. So comparing the top left figure, you can see that the temperatures that we faced are pretty average compared to what we experienced or what this region experienced over the last 42 days. And then they're really amazing and helpful for the navigation to the ice. You can see that in the top, in the bottom left image, you see the track and how we avoided significant wave heights. And I really do appreciate it because I get seasick every time, and they really did a great job avoiding those rough seas and help us get to the Weddell Sea safe. So that was really, really great. Next one, please. The second part that was sort of not just focused on the science, but also on the support of the expedition was the company Drift Noise. And I'm part of that company now. We're focusing on how to navigate in ice and support ice-going vessels in that regard. So once we reached the ice edge, next one, please, we started to look out for satellite images, radar images. John already showed those before, to even get to the Endurance wreck site or the search box. And John mentioned there's just not even a handful of ships that went to that region, and there's good reason for it because the ice conditions are really, really difficult. And you can see on the image that we had an intermediate sort of waypoint, and there's dark areas around that. And this is the sort of open water between sea ice that we saw in the image, the helicopter image that John showed. So we really looked for sort of an opening to even get to the region that we were interested in. And we used the ICC app, which is our flagship product at Drift and Noise, to get this kind of data and use it for strategic planning. So where to go in order to reach the wreck site, navigation to the target, I'm going to call it here. Next one, please. These radar images are rather low resolution compared to what we got from the German Aerospace Center, and this is shown on the right-hand side here. We got a Terrazar X image, and you can really see the kind of resolution that these images provided by the German Aerospace Center allowed us to do. So you can even see Agulhas 2 on that satellite image. You can clearly see different individual flows. You can even see how the surfaces of these flows are different in the backscatter signals. So you can see ridges and thinner ice. And this was really helpful after navigating to the target to actually do tactical navigation within our search box and to get the ship in position. Next one, please. So this is the second part. And obviously knowing about the ice conditions is one thing. A really important part of this is also knowing where the ice moves. And this was one of the research projects that also we followed. So we're talking about navigating inside the search box. And the idea was that the ship would be positioned in an ice flow, sort of stop the engine and then drift with the ice, and for the subsea team to survey in that period of time. So we always had to know where the ice we're going to connect to would be moving. And this is the colorful dots on the image. I'm showing two different types of ice drift forecasts, the SIDFEX from the Alfred Wegener Institute and the PRIMA forecast that we at Drift Noise developed. And you can really see the initial position. This is where the ship was positioned. And we always work together with Nico and the subsea team to figure out what the next area within the search books would be. So this is the next target, the red star down the southeast corner of the search box. And using those images and using the drift forecast, we figured, okay, in order for this next target to be surveyed, we'd have to position the ship in that position. And there's always the direct way, where you can see on that image really clearly that this would have been tough work to get through the ice against the drift. So what these images allowed us to do was sort of find highways within the ice and really take those opportunities of cracks and openings to get in position really quickly and ultimately allow us to survey the search box like this. So this was a support part of this, but also we learned a lot for our research on ice drift forecast, and knowing that ice is always on the move and that those satellite images are always just a snapshot in time, we really learned that it is important to have the satellite image in constant motion. So we're working on something to combine the drift forecast with those satellite images to create sort of an animation of how the ice is going to move, which will help navigation in the ice and ultimately route suggestions. So this is one of the research projects that we at Drift Noise are following. Okay, next slide, please. The German Aerospace Center, I already mentioned them. They really provided us with those incredible satellite images, but they also conducted their own type of research. I'm just going to name one example, just mapping the ice conditions using thermal infrared imagery. And I think this is really interesting and great images here to see open waters and cracks in the ice. You can even see ridges on the bottom image there in the middle. So getting those temperature maps allows you to get information on the ice conditions, and this is what they did in parallel as well. Next slide, please. We also had a very big component which was focused on engineering and the sort of the structural ship response to different stress factors. So this was spearheaded by the Stellenbosch University. They put out a bunch of sensors on the ship to measure vibrations from wave slamming, but later also in the ice. They investigated how ice and sort of stress on the ship affected the propulsion system and really analyzed those cycles. And this was always done also in combination with drift noise, for example, to see, you know, when we avoid ice, how this affects the measurements of stress on the ship. So this was really an integral part as well. Stellenbosch, next slide, please, is working together with Aalto University, who are focused on ice loads on the ship. So specifically on the hull, so they recorded the speed and other ship data. But then while measuring these factors or these ice loads on the ship, you can see that in the bottom left, they had visual observations of the ice conditions, sort of took notes when there's strong vibrations, that kind of stuff, camera systems to follow that kind of stuff. And the idea is really, together with Stellenbosch, to understand how ships react to ice loads, but also to waves, what kind of affects the ship's hull and the ship itself to ultimately improve the development of new icebreakers and ships. Interesting fact, you can see that in the ice load graphic down there is there's always high peaks, but then there's areas where there's no data values at all. And this is what I mentioned before. We always repositioned the ship in order to do the surveys. And while surveying, the ship was not moving. So these no data periods are really when the survey took place. And then the repositioning of the ship is shown with the peaks in force there. Next slide, please. The engineering work was also supported by the Alfred Wegener Institute, specifically with the sensor shown on the top left there. It's an electromagnetic induction sounding ice thickness measurement device, and this was connected to the ship in a way you see in that image. And it really gave us real-time sea ice thickness along the way. So whenever the ship was moving, we got live data of ice thickness, and you can see that in the top right image there, the different ice thicknesses along the pathway of the ship. And we did that throughout the entire time in the ice. And this is really like an additional data set for Aalto University and Stellenbosch to see, you know, different ice thicknesses and ice types when strong loads were measured on the ship's hull. So this was really a nice cooperation with them as well. Next slide, please. The Alfred Wegener Institute, which I was part of during the expedition, also focused on sea ice and snow, especially distributions on the different ice flows. So we always took the opportunity when the AUV was surveying, we were allowed on the ice and went on to do our research. This is a map showing all the ice stations that we conducted within the search area. On the right-hand side, you can see different images. The top one is a map of ice thickness that I gathered. You saw the image before, John showed it with the sort of a on-the-ground EM sensor. So not the one that was dangling from the ship, but one inside a sledge that was pulled over the ice to get ice thickness distributions. And one of these distributions is shown in the bottom there. So this was a big part of our project there. And then the next slide, please. The second one was really snow measurements, specifically collecting ice cores. This was also done in cooperation with Aalto University. So we took ice cores and analyzed the structural conditions within the ice. And you can see just an example of the different layers we got in that ice core, snow, superimposed ice, snow ice, and sea ice, and that was gathered from the salinity profiles, which is like a strong component. This was done on every station, and together with that, we also got snow distributions along the flow. And yeah, that was the second part. Next one, please. Ultimately, I just want to summarize the AVI contribution there. We were able to get an amazing amount of 17 ice stations together with Aalto University. We collected 40 ice cores and got 680 samples. I showed the EM sea ice thickness surveys, and there was even one snow buoy deployed. You can see the blue dots in the Zoom version of the map up there. So there's really a lot of data that was collected, and to give sort of an outlook into what might be possible with this, in the map, you can see those colorful dots and lines there. And this is something that is already done post-processing the data, sort of analyzing where the ice that we sampled during these ice stations originated from. And from looking at previous expeditions that conducted into this area, especially in the eastern Weddell Sea, this is really fits the ice that was measured a year ago. So we're able to follow ice, not just, snapshot in time, but over the course of the year, and see how this has changed. And this is really an amazing opportunity for AVI and for us, to use the platform and use this unique expedition to conduct this really important research. Next slide, please. I want to close by saying that, I only gave you a really brief introduction into all the different groups, but if you're more interested in that, you can have a look at our science report, which is available since about a month, I think. You can contact the science team. There's a nice picture of all of us on the ice there. And we're even going to have, and this is really thanks to the Falkland Maritime Heritage Trust, we're going to have a Endurance 22 science conference in Bremen next year, where we're not just going to invite the people that joined the expedition, but everybody who helped in the back offices and back home, but also people that are interested in analyzing other kinds of data sets. Marine biologists, top of my head, we saw all those fancy animals and things on the ship there, so that might be room for cooperation, and we really look forward to inviting a lot of people there. And yeah, finally, on behalf of the entire team, I want to thank the trust, John, Manson, Nico, the heli team, and the crew of Agalos, and everybody who supported us, because we weren't sure whether the priority on the science was big enough, but we had a lot of work and we got so much data, and we're so thankful for it. So thank you very much. And yeah, I think everybody's been waiting for the nice images from Nico. So I'm going to hand over to Nico now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jakob. So, and thank you to John as well. That's an honor for me to be with you today to talk about the endurance sensor and Shackleton. I've been involved on this project over 3 years, and I learned a lot from Shackleton. And at the French side of the team, I asked myself who may compare to him on my own country. So only the famous author Jules Verne has been able to face the impossible as Shackleton done. So I chosen 5 books to tell you the story about Endurance 22. The Subsea project is a journey to endurance. So the first book is around the world in 80 days. From UK, we crossed a world suffering unexpected pandemic, Sweden to manufacture the subsea autonomous underwater vehicle, France for ultra deep depth water, Belgium to catch cargo flights, South Africa to below on the icebreaker, Weddell Sea, of course, to find the worst condition possible for subsea operation, and finally, South Georgia to present our respect to the boss, back to the UK from South Africa. Again, all of our worldwide pandemics that generate huge interference, as Jen mentioned already. The next book is 2 years vacation, if I may say so. had been the time required to move from failure in 2019 expedition to the success of the discovery of the Endurance. 2 years of engineering, project management, listen, learn, and analysis to finally deploy a success plan for any type of scenario, including launching by helicopter through 5 meter high thickness, a drone identical in size and weight as your own car. Quite challenging, believe me, and funny. Please, I ask Jules Verne to accept my apologies as I take the freedom to modify the next book title. The mysterious ice has been the most complicated challenge to manage for the subsea operations. Ice forecast, state images has been the real game changer, as Jakob said, that allowed us a close work with ice pilot to find the best route. It's allowed to cover 300 kilometers squared. A seabed survey, it is a world record of seabed coverage in Weddell Sea and world record for under ice survey over fixed location too. For the first time, we deployed a new type of robotics over undiscovered country, and we face the absolutely unexpected. We face absolutely horrible condition up to -35 degrees with equipment freezing on site. We even built tent on back deck and use ice camp heater on the back deck. So operation anticipate new work solution almost never used on the subsea industry, including launching up to 8 kilometers of umbilical and flight at 4 nautical miles from the drifting launch point that is the size of a basketball court, a goal comparable to Elon Musk's SpaceX rocket returning from space and landing on a barge. Of course, by speaking of subsea and Jules Verne, it is automatically connect us to the Nautilus. So after so much effort, it's time. We welcome you on board our Nautilus for a dive with Captain Nemo. Let's discover the most incredible wreck never found. We have been absolutely amazed by the condition of the wreck. As John said, she looks that she sunk yesterday. I work on this industry since 30 years and found hundreds of wrecks, aircraft, and several devices lost at sea. I spent my life to say that the level of preservation do not exist, except for the unicorn in the Tintin comics, if you know Tintin. That's absolutely incredible to have this level of conservation. And we have quite a lot of data, and we suggest to showing you not only over the Nautilus portal, but this wreck in a single piece. So we produced usual data by using sonar high resolution and multi-beam data, which is this kind of result, high resolution, 3D echosonder. But in addition, we added a 3D LiDAR with 1 meter resolution. And that's an opportunity of a great science publication for a decade, because it will build a facsimile of the wreck. But we have more than that. Linked with a laser, we got a 4K still camera shooting in detail the vessel, so that you can see here. For example, the 6 degrees of freedom of the Sabatus and the crystal clear water generated wonderful set of pictures. Can you see the chain here? So you have the expedition team led by Shackleton, and you have the wreck here. So to produce these images, as I just mentioned, the vehicle is flying with a pitch of 45 degrees and just shooting on the side, which is quite amazing for a vehicle, a subsea vehicle. Let me introduce the most famous lino of the world, which is the lino of the galley. So you have here the original galley on board the Endurance, and you can see on the top view of the wreck this lino which is there, or Frank Wright boots buckle that we discover on the wreck. We could show more as flare gun, cricket bats, mugs, plate, or plenty of other artifacts. Unfortunately, we have to keep some secrets. And that's quite, unfortunately, something that you have to wait, because for example, this orthomosaic that you can see blurred will be produced soon. I apologize for the confidentiality level that is happening here, but we are still under processing, and final data will be shared for end of year with public and scientific community. But believe me, incoming data are absolutely great. Please give us extra time for processing. In top of the processing, we will produce a photo mosaic in 3D. It will be very, very soon completed. Again, with 1 mm resolution and real colorization, the 3D photogrammetry will be absolutely amazing. We have already a preliminary with only 4,000 pics, but we made 25,000. So soon, very soon, be ready to catch your own VR class and work on the endurance. The data reconstruction is a long job, but please be patient, it's coming. Last book, well, I like to compare this project to the first step on the moon, so I'm quite proud to have been allowed to become the Vermeer von Braun that built the rocket, computed the trajectory to safely allow my astronauts to land on the expedition moon, which have been the endurance. So thank you to all of them. They have been absolutely great people. My last word is for the boss that I must thank to have always been with us during our difficulties. We got even the feeling that he was with us, watching our progress and hiding himself, the endurance, until 4 p.m. on the 5th of March 2022, which is to the hour, precisely a century after his burial in South Georgia. So thank you, boss. Thank you so much. Back to you, John.
Thank you very much, Nico and Jakob. Brilliant presentation. I can see all the claps coming up on my screen here. I think we have a very excited audience out there. So I think that's everything that we want to say today. I'm very pleased with how the presentation went. Thank you very much to Jakob and Nico for all the effort they've done to bring it all together today. I'll hand over to you now, Rebecca. We're very happy to answer questions and answers. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of them. So over to you to moderate the Q&A, please.
Super. Okay, thank you. Please, if you have questions, you can type them into the Q&A space that you can find at the bottom of the Zoom screen. So I've got a first question here. I understand the Endurance has been designated as an historic site and monument by the ATCM. Given the global cultural importance of the Endurance, should it be given a higher level of protection as an Antarctic specially protected area, as has been done for Scott's Hut and Shackleton's Hut? Does anyone have thoughts on that?
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. I'll take that one. Yes, so at the Antarctic Treaty Consultative Meeting in May, the UK and South Africa put a joint paper in where they provided further information from us, including the coordinates of the wreck. And it was decided that UK and South Africa, with other interested parties, would lead on the development of a conservation plan for the wreck. At the moment, the wreck is designated as a historic site and monument under the Antarctic Treaty. It'll be, yes, that might be one of the recommendations that come out of the conservation management plan, that it might be designated as an Antarctic specially protected area. We'll just have to wait and see. But clearly, we've got some amazing data to help the authorities develop that plan. We stand willing and ready to assist. We've already had initial contact with the UK authorities about it. So yes, we'd be delighted to assist. And yes, we very much want to see the wreck protected for future generations. It is in incredible condition. We need to ensure that it's not damaged or anything's removed from it going forward. So yes, we stand ready to assist in developing that conservation management plan.
Okay, super. Here's a question about the science team, and the question is, how much of the scientific work was to support the expedition, such as navigation and so on, versus standalone scientific research?
Okay, well, I'll let Jakob take that one.
Yeah, I think I will. I can honestly say that everything that was done, even when it supported the navigation of the ship and supporting the expedition, everything will be used for standalone research. Like, we didn't do anything that wasn't helpful or, you know, has a plan and that we can use for research. So obviously the biggest part, the drift noise part, was supported, but even for drift noise, like, we're going to use those ice drift forecasts and all that stuff to develop new ideas and analyze how ice is moving in the Arctic. So everything's is going to be used for science.
Super. We've got a question here about the expectations of the crew going into the expedition. Were you fairly sure you were going to find the Endurance, or was there a lot of uncertainty?
Perhaps I'll take that one and then I'll ask Nico. No, there's an absolutely huge amount of uncertainty. We failed utterly on the Weddell Sea expedition in 2019, and some of your audience probably know that we lost a Hugin 6000 autonomous underwater vehicle in the process. So it was very challenging. There was no certainty that we were going to find the wreck. And indeed, the original charter time, we were going to be on the search box for about 10 days. We hadn't found the wreck after 10 days. We extended it. I was on the verge of actually stopping the expedition and pulling us out. We only had about 2 or 3 days left within the ice before we had to get back to Cape Town. Also, we're moving into winter, so you could see from Jakob's temperature graphs that the temperatures were getting colder and colder and colder, and we could have faced being in a similar situation to Shackleton himself, with the ship getting stuck and iced in. So it went right down to the wire. So there was no certainty that we were going to find it. We knew that we'd got a good search box to find it, but no certainty. So, but perhaps Nico would like to say a little bit about the subsea operations and the certainty about that. Over to you, Nico.
Well, when you search something underwater, you are never sure to find it. But in addition, for the Endurance, which has been considered as the most complicated one to find, the condition on surface was generating so much variables that nothing was sure at all. We planned during years and years whole scenario possible, but finally when we arrived we got new ones. So no, nothing was absolutely sure. It was really a daily job to pass to success.
Super, thank you. There's another question here about the submersible itself. Just a question about how long it took for the submersible to reach the Endurance once it had been launched.
The Sabertooth have the capability to fly with 6 degrees freedom. So that means that this vehicle may fly vertically. So when we launch it, the vehicle is going vertical and is going straight away downside. So to go in 3,000 meters, the time was roughly 1.5 hours to 2 hours. And then we reach the location. So you have to understand, as Jakob explained, normally when we walk on open water, the vehicle is fully free and is a master of the scope of work, and vehicle on surface, including vessel, are slaves. Here, when you are in Antarctica, the master remained the ice. So the vessel was stuck on ice, as Jakob explained, and we were obliged to anticipate what will be the drift of the ice. The reason why Drift and Noise made so much great job, and the reason why subsea and science were really linked together to be able to cover a task plan and survey planning, which not generating any uncovered area. So we anticipate the position, the drift, so then the location. So it was quite long to arrive at the effective survey area. So the average dive time from surface to surface was roughly 10 hours. On these 10 hours, only 6 was really used for seabed survey planning. So it's quite short. And with a very low efficiency from the subsea point of view.
Here's a question I'm really interested in. Could you tell us a bit about the various critters and fish that you found on the wreck?
I'll take that one, Rebecca. I think the simple answer is that none of your panelists today can tell you very much about it. I suspect there are some people in the audience who can tell us a lot more about the creatures that are living on the wreck. I'm quoted in the video saying that, yeah, there's virtually nothing living on it. Now, just to give that a bit of context, you know, if you were to look at and Nico will, I'm sure, also add his comments. If you were looking at a wreck in temperate waters, it would be, well, one, it probably wouldn't be there as a wooden wreck because it had been destroyed by wood-boring mollusks and worms. But those bits that did survive would be covered in corals and sponges and a whole range of marine life. So it was a surprise. Well, it was a surprise to us to find the wreck in such incredible condition. Then to find that there were creatures living on it, not huge numbers, but there were creatures living on it. And those creatures were clearly highly specialized to live in that sort of marine environment. I know there were sponges, crinoids, sea lilies. I know there's probably an old colleague of mine from British Antarctic Survey, Hugh Griffiths, is probably listening in on this. And Hugh would be the person to answer your question about that. But we know from the imagery that we have some absolutely crystal clear photographs, video imagery of the wreck, which down the line, once it's all been fully processed and hopefully be ready to show to a wider science community at the science conference in January, that would be a real amazing opportunity for the marine biological, deep sea marine biological community to have a look at what we found. So we're not the experts, but we're very happy to talk to those who are. So Nico, do you want to say a little bit about, you know, in your experience of a wooden wreck like this?
Yeah, as I mentioned, usually wood wrecks are fully disappeared in the water column, and we have only woods under the seabed covered by sand or mud. So the incredible condition here is really unexpected. But for the biologist, the fact that we are doing photogrammetrics with 1 millimeter resolution will not allow only archaeologists to work on academic paper, but I think that biologists as well. So they will have access to this data soon. Most probably, as said John, if we are ready for January in Bremen. So the first one will be the IAA. People, they can see at it and analyze in details the type of characters that we found on the wreck.
Super, thank you. Looking forward to hearing more about those critters. Yeah, here's a question for you, John. How did you select the team members for this expedition? Must be important to try and avoid the Boys Club of historic Antarctic expeditions, is what our question said.
Okay, good question. So yeah, Shackleton famously never really interviewed anybody for jobs. He'd bring people in and I think it was Reginald James, his physicist. He asked him to sing. Didn't ask him anything about the science he was going to do. We didn't quite do that. But for quite a large number of the expedition team, I hadn't actually met them before we actually got on board the ship. I had a very good senior team around us. And I want to be very clear here. You mentioned Old Boys Club. That wasn't the case at all. We chose the people who were the best people to do that job. You know, Nico, you cannot say that Nico or Jakob or the other people are part of the Old Boys Club. You know, it was his first time to Antarctica. So we chose the people who are the best people to do that job, whether they were male, female, black, white, whatever color, whatever gender, you know, we were happy to, we wanted the very, very best people to do that. And you've seen from the photos that we've shown today that this expedition was international. We brought with us, we were on a South African ship, run by the South African government, multiracial crew, multiracial expedition team, which I'm very, very proud of. So I would totally refute this was some sort of Old Boys Club. It was not, it was a professional international expedition with a whole range of nationalities involved in it.
Yeah, just to be clear, no one was saying that you were doing that. It was more a reference to Shackleton's way of doing things. Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay.
Just as a last question, because it's about time for us to wrap up, can you just tell us about what's coming down the line in terms of the release of more visual material, the TV show and so on?
Okay, well, let's first talk about science before I talk about media releases. So science, the scientists are working up their data now. I know there are a number of publications being readied at the moment, particularly on the sea ice research. We've got the science report, the draft, the science report from the cruise, if you like, the cruise science report is out, and you can get that on the Endurance 22 website. So we're very happy that's publicly available. Anybody watching this today can go onto the website and download the science report. And as Jakob said, all the scientists are very happy to communicate their results and talk about their results to anybody who's particularly interested. We'll be having the science conference in Bremen, where the scientists will present. It'll be open, so if people want to come, then please let us know. And we'll be advertising the fact via SCAR when we've got a few more details available. So that will be happening, and we'll be looking forward to getting scientific results and data out. And I'll just say that in terms of publications, some of your audience will know that there were some really impressive publications came out of the Weddell Sea expedition in 2019, including a paper in Nature, in Science, by Professor Julian Dowswell at the Scott Polar Research Institute, using some of the subsea data collated by the Hugin AUV. So we're very proud of our science track record, and we'll be looking to continue that with the Endurance 22 team. So that will be happening. As we've already said, in January, we'll be planning to release a lot more of the imagery of the wreck, which we know will be of utter fascination to the deep sea biologists. And I'm sure that there will be further research and published work on the back of that. Then we go into the media work. Yes, there will be a major TV documentary produced by National Geographic. That's likely to be aired in about 18 months' time. We are also continuing our education and outreach work. The film team are on board, did a whole series of educational films and videos. They're being prepared now, but we would be expecting them to be released via the Royal Geographical Society and reach the world probably in the autumn. I know that they're nearly ready for production. So the various strands of the expedition are still continuing, and we're still working very hard on them. But yeah, I think the National Geographic documentary would be very, very special, and expect to see that probably in about 18 months' time, I think.
Super. Well, we very much look forward to that. I just want to thank you all for your presentation. That was excellent. And thank you to all the people who tuned in to listen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us, Scar.